So I'm coming to you, Jimmy, because I know you were telling me earlier that you had a scenario where you were working with somebody recently, coaching them, and they had something they'd been working on a long time and thought it was getting them to success. And it wasn't until they had fresh eyes on the scenario where they realized, oh, this is actually taking me further away from what I want. Would you mind sharing that first one?
Man, I'd love to. One of the first steps we work through with clients is looking at cash flows, kind of the financial snapshot. What does the financial picture look like? What resources do we have to start building the passive income, right? The financial freedom formula is easy. Passive income greater than monthly expenses. But we also know that if there is excess cash flow, money can either flow towards us or flow away from us. And unfortunately, what I see a lot is people are intentionally flowing money away from them when there's a better plan. And so this couple, they were aggressively trying to pay down and pay off some credit card debt at a high interest rate that credit cards typically have. They had extra cash flow every month, but they were diverting all of that away from them, right? And they came to me and they said, hey, we really want to start building passive income. We've got these retirement plans that we don't believe in anymore that are just sitting here, but we're just aggressively paying down debt. And I said, well, my understanding of 401ks, TSPs is you're able to take a loan from that plan and essentially just pay it back yourself. You said you're going to cut off contributions. What would it look like if you took a loan from your TSP plan, paid off that credit card debt? What would your monthly cash flow look like? So we went through that process and they were flowing $1,400 a month away from them towards this credit card debt. They were able to go get a loan from their TSP plan, spread that out over 5-6 years. That's coming out of their paycheck anyways, what was already coming out previously. And it freed up $1,100 a month, Russ, for them now to start building passive income with, when previously they had zero because they were just tackling the debt. So can we do two things at one time?
So breaking that down, they had been paying this money to the credit card company, trying to get out of debt. And you showed them, hey, there is another option. You can borrow money at a fixed rate that's cheaper, that's actually amortized over a 5-year window. And by doing that, one, you're getting money out of the market that is, poised at a point where we don't know if it's going up, going down, or going sideways. And then you can start using that, which frees up the cash flow that they were doing to be able to start putting assets on the table that produce cash flow. Is that what I heard?
That's right. That's right. I never tell people what to do with their money, right? That's not my job. But we talked through the scenario. I said, what if, what does this look like? And they made that decision to, now they have resources to put into play to start building the dream, right? Building the passive income to exceed those monthly expenses.
I love it. So good. That is a money habit that could hurt somebody without not understanding what to do and just trying to pay down on debts and not getting out of debt or not using the correct way to do it. Ah, so good. All right. How about for you, Eric? Tell me about a money habit somebody's doing on a regular basis that's keeping them broke.
There's a well-worn idiom, I guess, called a failed plan is a plan to fail. And I think for us, what we see so many times in coaching is our very first pillar is to have a strategy and a vision. Because if we don't know which direction we're going, any road will do. And so many times we've gone way too far down the wrong road than we would have had to have had we known what our goal was in the first place. I had a call with a friend just this week, and I could really tell on the other end of the phone, he was actually wringing his hands because he was trying to figure out if what they had created for themselves was going to be enough to cover their monthly expenses as they got older, and how much of this side job that he was planning to do part of the time was he going to have to do. And I'm like, oh, great. This is a number we can get to. Well, what is your monthly expenses? What are those going to be? What are they now? Well, I don't know that number. Well, then it's pretty hard to create a strategy to know exactly what we're going to have to cover if we don't even know what the goal is. So whether it's in business or personally, we really have to sit down and take some time to really determine what we're shooting for. That's the only way we can create a path towards it. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, you're wasting time, you're wasting money. And talking about being poor, you're poor in spirit and poor in mind because you're worried about something you don't even know how big the monster is because you don't know what the goal is.
Well, I mean, hey, I want to build 10,000 or to cover my monthly expenses, I got to get $10,000 a month in passive income. Well, one, knowing exactly how much are you spending? How many people's head are in the sand around that area? So not knowing what that is and then being able to break it down like, okay, well, let's take that big number and break it down into bite-sized pieces. Maybe we need to get it into four $2,500 pieces here. Okay, what's it going to take to get us to our first $250, and then we'll keep going until we get the first full $2,500. Knowing those numbers, getting them down into bite-sized pieces is so important, but most people do fail to plan on that. Joey, how about for you? What's some money habit that somebody's doing that's keeping them broke?
Man, I'll tell you, I think growing up in a way that you don't have a lot, you can kind of create a scarcity mindset. I personally experienced this, so I'm just sharing from personal experience here. But what kind of leads into this is, man, when you don't feel like there's enough, you sometimes try to do everything on the cheap, right? You try to just figure things out on your own. You want to do your own taxes, right? You want to go to YouTube and get one piece of advice from this guru, and then you go and follow this person. They say to do this, and then you go do this. And what you've done is you've effectively DIY'd your way into a mess. In many cases, a very disconnected plan, as Eric just laid out, is not a plan at all. And so you feel like you're doing the right things, and you feel like you've done it at the cheapest way possible to be efficient or effective. But what ends up happening is we don't see the value of hiring the expert, right? To get a coach, to get somebody who's a tax team to help us maximize our tax savings. I've heard people say before, man, I don't know about this, this tax strategy group. They're saying it's $30,000 to work with them. And yet in the same breath, that person would save over 60 to 100,000 in taxes by working with that group. Every year. My question is, how can you afford not to work with that person? Because how can you get those same results on your own? The point I'm making is the DIY and trying to do everything on the cheap is a major money habit that is costing people a lot of money.
Yeah, I can relate to seeing so many different Frankenstein plans, right? Where they had 7 different advisors that had given them one idea, and now they're in the middle. They're trying to be the hub in the wheel, and they don't understand why any of these things work. And to be honest, I don't think any of the other advisors had any clue what the other one was doing. And so now, because it was completely DIY, I think that they're wasting more energy. They're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, I think is your point there. So one of the things that I see is a money habit that people are making that's keeping them broke is they're just not investing in themselves. And you probably have heard that, and you're like, man, I was hoping you're going to give me something better than that, Russ. But I can tell you firsthand, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to be in the right rooms, to invest in courses, to invest in coaching programs, to invest in masterminds, to travel to events, to be in a room just to have a conversation with someone in the back of the room. And every single time that I've traveled, I've picked up one thing that's made significant impact. And part of the thing, going back to your point, Eric, is that I went with a vision of understanding my goal is to get one idea that can put X number of dollars in my pocket or reduce an expense that I would have had that's worth X number of dollars. That's my goal, right? And if I can find that one idea, I know that the trip has now been worth it. Anything else from that point forward is relationships, and I try to build those. And I don't think enough of us has spent enough time and effort truly investing in ourselves to know that there's ideas out there that can truly make a difference. And yes, have I spent money on courses and programs that I never end up using? True, yeah. But by going through those programs and spending $10,000 to learn immediately that I don't want to do it, kept me from trying to DIY it and spending 3 years to get to the point where I realized I couldn't do it and it wasn't actually going to be a fit. So I feel like I shortened the process. I hacked the process. Or I got into a conversation with somebody that realized, hey, if you tweak it this way, it actually becomes a new thing. For instance, Joey and I doing this podcast. This is really a great podcast for us. We love this podcast because we get to hear new ideas. We get to hear who's doing what, and then we get to figure out if we can find an operator to do it for us. And we have a handful of times. We got a new podcast coming up pretty soon that you guys are going to know how much I like it because I talk about it so often, but I won't give it away to you just yet. And he's got a program that I'm going to figure out somebody to sit through so they can learn how to do it so that we can start a new business, Stallion. We don't have enough LLCs now. All right. Let me get back to you, Jamie. Give me another money habit that's keeping somebody broke.
Well, Russ, you had all the pieces to what I'm going to say, and I think it ties in perfectly is herd mentality, right? There's a saying that we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like, right? And some people are going to say that's a Dave Ramsey quote. I'm going to attribute that to Fight Club, right? Even if it is Dave, I agree with him. I think a lot of people do that, right? I see it in my neighborhood every single day that we're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And I think that has to do with the herd mentality. The question is, which herd are you in, right? How you think has a lot to do with who you're around. So investing in yourself, being in groups is super important. I saw a friend post something the other day on social media, and he said he went through an intentional process of going through his contacts, the people he talks to the most often, and putting them into categories of growth friends and maintenance friends, right? And so he is intentionally trying to be intentional, sorry to use that twice, about connecting more with his growth friends, right? Who you surround yourself is who you're going to become. And so getting in the room, being in the right herd is super important. And I think when we're in the herd that spends money recklessly, we end up spending everything we make to keep up with that herd. We end up not making good money decisions because that's what the neighbor down the street or our best friend is doing. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap. And so in my neighborhood, instead of keeping up with the Joneses, I'm trying to get more people to keep up with the O'Briens. You know what I mean?
I love that. So just for curiosity, were you a growth friend or a maintenance friend?
He tagged me in the post. I'm a growth friend for sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, man, the friends that we keep, right? We tell our kids that, right? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. But I think it's true as well as show me your friends, it'll show you your finances. And we had Steve Sims in our mastermind come and speak, and he was talking about the influence of those relationships and the way that even if you're not at the level that you want to be, you start trying to find people to be around that you want to be like. And you know you're in the right room when your goals, your aspirations are their daily accomplishments. And if you're aspiring to be some level and the people around you, one, are not wanting to aspire to that level, or two, are not doing the thing that you want to be doing, then you need to get you 5 new contacts in your phone, it sounds like, based on what Jamie just said.
Man, and you know what? Sorry to jump in there, but growth happens when you're uncomfortable, right? And sometimes it takes getting uncomfortable to think like, I have to find new people to hang around. And I just encourage people. It's hard, right? This passive income journey and doing what we do is different from a lot of people, but it's so worth it.
If you've listened to our show for any length of time, you've heard us talk about infinite banking and how we are able to use that concept to create over $50,000 a month in passive income. But it's just not that easy to figure out, how does this all connect into my own personal system?
Stallion, that's why we created the passive income operating system, bro. It shows you how to turn active income into passive income. It makes all the steps come together. If you would like to get access to it as a podcast listener, we've never given this away in public before, go to what'swhatwallstreet.com/PIOS. There was nothing worse than walking into class when you're in school and the teacher saying, pop quiz day. Why? Because you were unprepared. Are you unprepared though for financial freedom?
Don't be. Find out how close you are by taking our 30-second quiz at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/quiz.
All right. Give me something tangible again, Eric, here. What's another money habit somebody's doing that's keeping them broke?
Well, Russ, this guy that I know wrote this brilliant book called Automated Budget. And I'm telling you, Russ, it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Game changer. So, Russ, I don't know if you know this about me. We talked about pizza on our last podcast. I really do enjoy eating like a whole lot more than I should. And, that's a thing that I think a lot of people struggle with is their diet. Wouldn't it be amazing? And how thin and healthy and fit would I be, at least from my nutrition, if automatically for every meal, the exact portion of the exact fruits and vegetables I was supposed to eat, that was what popped in front of me on my plate. That would take all the thought, all the emotion out of it for me, and I would just be able to eat what was in front of me without having to make that hard decision every single time that mealtime came. Well, for a lot of people out there, spending is that thing for them. They have a real hard time when they get that paycheck and all those dollars hit that account. It's very, very difficult because if you don't have a plan for your money, somebody else does. And every commercial you see, every advertisement causes that money to leak out of our budgeting system. People that set up an automated budget, like I do in my life, where those dollars come into that account and automatically disperse into the accounts they're supposed to go in, so that you know you're doing all the good you're supposed to be doing with those dollars first. If you're an evangelical Christian and that's tithing, that can happen automatically. Pay yourself first, which is an important part of what we do to grow our wealth, is to pay ourselves first so that we have money to invest and grow our wealth and our net worth and our influence and our ability to bless others. If all of that could happen automatically, that can be life-changing for so many. So if I, can just leave with a self-serving comment in some way is, man, check out Automated Budget. It's inside our courses at Wealth Without Wall Street. If you're in the community, you can get access to that. And it's been life-changing for tens of thousands of people. Just do it. Literally, just do it.
It's been life-changing for me, man. It makes my life so much easier. You guys know how I loathe to open email. Man, opening bills in my house is even worse. Like I just don't, I see them and I'm repelled. I'm like, I don't even want to go near them. And once I set up the automated budget, I'm like, it's all going to happen. It's all going to happen unless somebody sends me, every once in a while I get a random bill that was not set up on auto payment somehow. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I need to pay that. But I'm figuring out through Gravy Stack how to make that a gig for my kids. They can figure out which ones those are, and I'll show them how to pay it so I don't have to deal with it. All right, Stallion, speaking of authors on Amazon, let me come back to you. I don't know if everybody knows we got a book coming out here, and Joey is an author as well on Amazon. What's another growth habit, or not a growth habit, but a habit that's keeping people broke?
Oh, well, man, there's so many things I want to say because that was amazing. One quick plug before I tell you this. What Eric just shared is something that is an excellent thing to have in place. What I'm about to share is an excellent thing to have in place, but so few people will do it on their own. And that's why we've built the Ignite coaching program for those who know that there's a lot of work to do to get to financial freedom, but they just either don't have the plan or they have the plan and won't have the accountability to get it completed. You now have the ability to work with a one-on-one coach to get all these things set up. And one of those is the automated budget. So it's a great idea, but when you actually have somebody holding your hand and making it happen, that is where the game has changed. The second thing that we're talking about is getting your dollars to do more than one job. So when you have your dollar doing one job only, you're going to stay broke. And let me just give you a vision of what Russ and I have built over the last 15 years. When we put a dollar into our infinite banking systems, those dollars are now captured, and whatever we use those dollars for, okay, whether it's to pay off a debt or to buy an asset that's going to create passive income, both are in line with this financial freedom formula. But if I look down the road and I look at the legacy of what those dollars will be worth, they're between a 4 to 10x what they would have been if they were just in my savings account. Let me just say that again. A 4 to 10x, depending on several different variables. But if your dollars could do that, how much more good can you do for both you, your family, and for others, as Eric mentioned? Like, we're about stewarding the dollars that God's given us in the best possible way. And if I know there's a way to take that same dollar and grow it to that level, why in the world would I not do it, except for I don't understand how, and two, I don't have somebody to help me implement it. So there's my 2 cents on that. Get your dollars doing all sorts of jobs at once.
Yeah. Lazy cash is a definitely money habit that is costing most people and keeping them in the situation of being broke. I want to round us out. This is one that I want to share with our self-employed business owners out there. And I want to make a distinction. I think words matter. A lot of times we call ourselves business owners. If we have a business license, we even have maybe some employees. But the distinction of a business owner versus self-employed is what? It's when we can leave our business for up to a year and come back and it still be growing at a level equal to or greater than when we left. And for most of us, we go, oh, I guess I'm not a business owner yet. Well, the biggest mistake I see people make that's keeping them in the same situation of where they are, if they're self-employed, is that they're thinking way too small. They're thinking in a way that they're not making themselves, they're not scaling their business to a level in which they can start firing themselves out of the roles that they are currently holding. And they have to think completely different in order to do that. And there's lots of reasons why we want to scale. Because we scale, we can help a lot more people. But also, one of the things that we learn, we've followed the CASHFLOW Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki's amazing book. He talks about who pays the highest amount of taxes, Stallion, which side of the quadrant, the left side or the right side?
The left side.
Right. The employees and the self-employed pay far more in taxes than the business owners and the investors on the right side. And we're trying to not only make more money, but we're trying to keep more money. And so one of the things I think that I see keeping people in the same position that they are in is they're thinking not big enough. Here's an example. We got to spend time with the guy who acquired a number of rental properties, and he had built this huge portfolio. And while I was not really, be honest, personally interested in having a bunch of real estate, I was having the question like, well, why is it that you do it? He says, well, Russ, do you know every time I need to take money against my real estate portfolio, I'll go to the bank and I take a loan. He goes, now, how much in tax do I have to pay on that loan? Well, just like you said, Joey, I've been taking loans against insurance policies for a long time. I know that all those loans are income tax free. He says, this is exactly the way I keep my taxes at zero or as close to zero as I possibly can. Is that as my equity in the properties continue to grow, I can borrow money against them and I can bring that in and it's not reportable as income, right? Because it's a loan against the property itself. And I think no matter what we're doing, whether it's businesses or real estate or whatever the investment are, if we are in that I quadrant, we can get ourselves into as low as a 0% tax rate. Well, if you are in a situation where you're falling and you're in the E and the S quadrant and you're thinking too small, you're not thinking about how to be moving yourself to the right side, this is an encouragement to get after it. I'll even give a plug. We had a chance to spend a little time with Walker Devil the other day. He wrote a fantastic book that talks about buy a business, then build off of it, right? So maybe one of this bonus items here is quit trying to just build things from scratch. Find an existing model that already is working, purchase it, and then grow. I heard a guy say, if you want to make $1 million, the easiest not to take $1 million business and try to double it to 2 million. It's to buy a $100 million business and just grow at 1%. You got to think differently. All right. Gentlemen, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing these habits. Hopefully you gained a little nugget out of this. We appreciate you joining us every week. If you like this kind of content, just take a screenshot of wherever you're watching this on or listening to this to, and just tag us somewhere on social so we know we can create more content just like this because this is what you're looking for. Have an amazing day.
This has been the Wealth Without Wall Street podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show to break free of the Wall Street mindset and begin building wealth on your own terms in places you understand so that your wealth will never run dry. See you next episode.